I want to hear cannons. Downfield, pull up, ball to the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Those up with the head to the side. 30. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25. 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And then the cannons come. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Hello and welcome, Bucs fans, to this week's game preview edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I am your host, as always, Rhett Matthew. Joining me today from the 813.TV, Rock Riley, and covering the Broncos, the host of Bleav in Broncos, first-time guest, Patrick Chiotti. Rock, Patrick, how you guys doing today?
Doing great. We're week 3 in. I keep looking up at the schedule. I'm like, slow. Man, the season's already going by fast, but I'm doing good. How about you, Patrick?
I've been better. It's been better in Broncos country, for sure, but I'm doing fantastic. Yeah, week 3 already here. It's crazy how the time just flies by, man, but it's going to be an exciting week of football. Always love playing against the Bucs.
Still the early window of the NFL regular season here in 2024, but as the games go by, you start to get a better idea of what exactly these teams are made of, and this week we should have a good one on the slate. The 2-0 Buccaneers play host to the Denver Broncos in Raymond James Stadium, and the Buccaneers are looking to start their season 3-0 for the first time in damn near 20 years. John Gruden was the head coach last time they did it in 2005. Now let's just go ahead and dive into the injury report here at the top of the preview. For the Buccaneers, Todd Bowles confirmed today, no Calijah Cancey, no Antoine Winfield, and no right tackle Luke Goedeke once again for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Vita was light at practice this week, Rock, but Bowles didn't say for sure if he was going to be out for week 3. I don't know if this game against the Broncos is the game that they want to rush back Vita, who was considered day-to-day with an MCL sprain this week, but what are you hearing around the Advent Health Training Center?
Yeah, you're right, Rhett. And, he's a big man. To have an MCL grade 2 sprain for his size, all that weight on it, it might be better to rest him. But no, we were surprised because he wasn't around at practice. We were there for special teams, of course, the warm-ups. And then they say, okay, that's it. Stop shooting. And as I look, a cart pulled up to the building. Here comes Vita out with his helmet on, dressed. And then we had to leave. And then we heard he did make a go of it at practice. So he's going to be a game time decision. And remember, they are beat up on that defensive line. Will Golston did not practice at all yesterday. He was limited. He came out today. And Logan Hall is dealing with a knee injury. He pretty much has not been full go. So I know it's a different opponent than the Lions, but still they are pretty banged up on that defensive line.
No Cameron Johnson at wide receiver for the Bucs this week. Rachaad White also still limited at practice, nursing a groin injury, but he is expected to give it a go. Now, Patrick, taking a look at the Broncos, they come into this game shorthanded on the offensive line. They're already down right tackle Mike McGlinchey, who was placed on IR. Linebacker Baron Browning and safety J.L. Skinner did not practice at all this week, if I'm not mistaken. Any other casualties over there?
You kind of hit the nail on the head there. Losing Mike McGlinchey is probably the biggest one because he played pretty well against C.J. Watt. It was nice to see. That was a battle that we were really concerned about going into that Pittsburgh game, and to lose him for the next 4 weeks and having to play a guy with limited starting experience is tough. Baron Browning, from what I've heard, it's going to be pretty close to a game time decision, but there's also rumors that they might put him on IR. John Franklin Myers was also limited. Brandon Jones, the safety, also limited. But losing J.L. Skinner, that one's going to be tough. If he doesn't play, they lose a big special teams ace on that team, and it's not going to look good for the Broncos special teams.
Now, let's just dive into it. Patrick, I want to open this question up to you first as we kind of look at the tail of the tape for the Broncos, if you will. Not only are the Bucs going to face off against a familiar foe in Sean Payton, looking to make a go of it here in year 2 as head coach of the Broncos, but for the second time in 3 weeks, they're going to be facing a rookie quarterback. They did a decent job with Jaden Daniels in week 1 against Washington, and they have got Bo Nix coming in here to, face Todd Bowles, these exotic defensive fronts, and he'll also be facing the heat and humidity in Raymond James Stadium. But your early thoughts on Bo Nix, because I got to tell you, I liked him a lot coming out of the draft. And I know maybe fans up there are giving him a hard time. I think a lot of Tampa fans might be overlooking this kid, but let's be fair. Seems like these first 2 weeks of the season, the Broncos and Sean Payton especially, that play calling, they're asking him to do a lot. I don't think there's been a game so far where he hasn't thrown the ball 30 plus times.
Yeah, and that's just not good for success, honestly. When you have a rookie quarterback, you want to be able to ease him into a rhythm. You want to be able to schedule out plays that you can get him into a good rhythm, good timing situations. And the run game, honestly, just has not been there for the Denver Broncos. That is something that they have struggled with mightily. And when you don't have a good run game, you can't rely on your quarterback to feel comfortable throwing the ball. They faced a ton of stacked boxes, and it just doesn't feel like they're giving Bo the opportunity or the option to check out of some of these plays. Because when you're facing a box of 8 guys, you need to be able to check out of that and get to a pass, and they're just not doing that. Javonte Williams has struggled mightily with his vision these first 2 games, but the offensive line, I got to tell you, man, going back and I'm watching some of this tape, and, it's really easy to pin a lot of things on Bo Nix and say, yeah, he's a rookie quarterback and he has made plenty of mistakes. But you kind of expect that from a rookie, right? We've seen Caleb Williams do the same thing. Jaden's been playing pretty clean, but, he's not blowing up the box score. So what's going on with Bo? A lot of it has to do with just the concepts that they're running in certain situations, the personnel groupings that they're running in and out. It doesn't make for a good rhythm or flow at all. So he looks really uncomfortable in a lot of situations. He's having a little difficulty stepping up into the pocket, but man, it's also difficult when your starting center cannot hold the A gap for more than a couple of milliseconds. It's pretty bad. So they invested so much money in this offensive line, and you expect them to play really well, and they're just not playing up to the standard. All across the board, it's pretty rough. But Bo looks like a rookie. That's going to be a given. But he's also made some pretty good reads throughout these first 2 games, and he's put the offense in pretty good situations at certain times. But he's just got to keep stacking games. Really, that's the key, is just keep stacking games, get to what works, and then figure out how you can expand from there. Because there were a couple shots that they could have taken in that Pittsburgh game that weren't there because a tackle missed a read, or the center couldn't hold his block, and it just blew up the play. So it's there. You just got to keep stacking games.
Rock, we had mentioned, the Bucs kind of going to be missing some pieces along that defensive line for another week in a row, but you've got a lot of young pass rushers and a lot of young defensive players who were able to step up big time last week in that win against Detroit. How do you think they're going to attack a rookie quarterback once again this week? They did a decent job with Jaden Daniels in week 1. He was able to make a lot of plays with his legs. Bo Nix has done a pretty good job at extending plays out of the pocket, but if they can cause problems early, I don't know if Sean Payton is going to have the juice later on in the game to get him out of trouble. But, this Bucs young pass rush, another week in a row with a lot to prove.
Yeah, I asked that about Bowles. I asked that to Bowles, also the defensive line coach. He's the run game coordinator, Casey Rogers. And they both said the same thing. The first practice, you are a rookie. After that, you're not a rookie. Okay? And they're in the meetings. They're participating almost as much at practice. So when their number is called, the Buccaneers are expecting you with their standard to step up. They're not going to say, oh, we got a rookie here, we got a backup here. Casey Rogers yesterday said, we don't change our game plan. What we're going to come at Bo Nix with, we're going to come at it. And if we get another injury, or it's got to be Gaines more snaps, or even Will Golton, you're 70%. And Bowles gets that question a lot. You're going up against another rookie quarterback. And in the past, there's been times where rookie quarterbacks have hurt you. There's other times that Bowles has done good. And Bowles says the same thing, and he said it on Monday. We're not going up against Bo Nix, because if you just concentrate on the quarterback, what about the other 10 guys on offense? So Bowles so far has done a really, really good job, man, in preparing them, because every defensive player that I've spoken to in the locker room the last 2 weeks said the game plan has been fantastic. They've known what's coming. Bowles has put them in a good situation. against Jaden Daniels, they knew he could run, but they also had McLaren. They didn't want him to go deep. And so Bowles said, we let him run a little bit, but we didn't get burned by the big pass. Last week, hostile environment, Jared Goff, look at the weapons he has. I think they did a pretty good job. So if you're betting on a game plan, I don't know what he's planning because he's not telling us. I would bet on Bowles for this one.
Patrick, the Broncos offensive line is going to see a lot of different defensive fronts here. We know Todd Bowles loves to get creative in disguising the blitzes and other things that he's trying to show a quarterback, especially a young rookie quarterback who hasn't seen this stuff before. But when you look at the Broncos on the offensive side of the ball, they're going to have to do something to help this kid out, and I definitely think that's going to be a point of emphasis. But how do you think they do that? Is it an extra tight end? Is it bringing up an extra lineman to the line of scrimmage? As far as offensive personnel usage, an interesting stat here about the Broncos, they are 4th in the NFL so far the first 2 weeks at using 13 personnel. So 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, and 3 tight ends. So a lot of heavy tight end sets when they're not throwing the ball with 3 wide receivers. How do you think they're going to try and help out Bo Nix this week?
Well, I mean, with Mike McGlinchey out, this is going to be an area where they're going to need their tight ends to stay in a little more, chip a little more, because the pass rushers are going to be relentless. And we've already faced 2 really good defenses so far with pretty talented pass rushers. And this is no change. Like this is going to be another group that's going to bring a lot of heat and a lot of different pressure. I think, honestly, I'm going to go even further. And I'm going to say there might need to be a change in offensive play caller of how we figure this out, because last week you're putting Bo in some situations where he's getting the play in with 9 seconds left on the clock, and that's just not good football. It's not giving him the time to see anything or make any changes. But yeah, bringing in different personnel groupings, maybe bringing in another tight end. Dulcich isn't that great of a blocker. Maybe you use Mike Burton in those areas where you need a little chipper. They've done that this season so far. Matt Peart's been that extra offensive lineman where Quinn Bailey was that guy last season. Matt Peart has been in that role so far. Maybe you get to that, but man, the way that they're running the football, it's going to be tough. You come out in those personnel groupings and it's almost like a tell, hey, they're running the ball here. We're going to be able to stop this. So I think maybe switching up run designs, maybe going to a little more gap. They've been running a ton of duos so far, going to a little more gap and being able to open up some lanes for this run and get Bo Nix into a rhythm. I think that's going to be the way that they go instead of bringing in more personnel groupings. But it's definitely going to be a challenge for sure. Is Troutman going to be the guy to stay in and block? Probably, but they still need another pass catching tight end, and they can't afford to keep another guy in to protect Bo.
Rock, I wanted to ask you about the defensive approach for Tampa Bay this week. We've kind of gone over so far about how the Broncos still trying to figure out how to move the football, trying to find success throwing the football, still have some things to work out. Not finding a ton of success out of that running back room, still have some things to work out. But I do think it bodes well for the Broncos that, as we have mentioned, the Bucs going to be down Calijah, Cancey, potentially Vita. Listen, I want to assume he doesn't play. We don't know for sure. The guy's an NFL athlete. He's 300 plus pounds. I don't know anyone in that facility who's going to physically stop him from playing. But even if he does play, I don't expect him out there at 100%. So do you think this is the week that, these young guys need to step up and be prepared? Greg Gaines going to be playing a lot of snap out of the interior. He had a lot of snaps last week, complained that he was sore. But is this the week that the run defense kind of has to step up? I know not a ton of sacks so far this season for Tampa Bay, but is this the week that Denver tries to run the football here?
I would assume so. I would think so. And listen, the Buccaneer defense, to me, after 2 games, I go after games. I've never practices, I've mini camp, all that. That's great. They were running the football great in the preseason and really haven't run the football that well. But their defense, okay, you got Levante David back there. Do you notice Jose Ramirez, some of the younger guys, they're starting to get more playing time. It's their time. They've watched the back end, Jordan Whitehead. A lot of the players, even the coaches, were talking about what an addition that was to get Jordan Whitehead back. Then you look and you say, okay, Antoine Winfield isn't there. But Zion McCollum, look at the job that he has done. He was telling us the difference between now and when he first got in the league, he was real hesitant and making the tackles. Was he going to miss? And then, I don't know if you heard about this, but this offseason, he played tackle football with his brother with no pads on. His brother is on the Eagles. And we were asking, did the coaching staff know about that? He goes, no, don't say anything. That's unusual for an NFL player to go no pads in the offseason, but they worked on technique because you know how brothers are. He's like, my brother knows my weakness. I know his. He worked to make me get better. And they took a chance with Carlton Davis and letting him go, and McCollum has stepped up. So right now the defense is playing really, really good football. Yes, they're going to have to, and they don't have their run stuffer in the middle. But honestly, if they don't beat themselves, especially on defense, I really don't think they're going to have a problem with the Broncos offense.
Yeah, I'm expecting Sean Payton to try and allow Bo Nix to get rid of that football quickly. Quick developing routes, high percentage looks. The Bucs just need to do a good job of keeping everything in front of them, right? I don't think there's going to be too many opportunities for that big play over the top. We haven't seen a ton of it. I know there was that big Lions touchdown earlier last week, but aside from that, we haven't seen too many teams kind of pick the Bucs apart over the top. I don't think it's going to happen with Bo Nix this week. But one more defensive matchup I wanted to talk about. Wide receiver Courtland Sutton could be one of those guys who is on the receiving end of those underneath routes, a lot of mesh concepts. He could be what we like to call a buck killer in this game. One of those guys that just always finds a way to get open. It's either that or the slowest guy on the field for the offense for Denver. But Patrick, when you look at the firepower that they do have on the offensive side of the ball, are there any guys that you think could have a big game?
Well, I mean, you were talking about the big play not being there. And I think that's something, like I said, going back and watching last week, they were trying to get that. They had a couple of plays where they had Marvin Mims coming across as a crosser. Troy Franklin, Bo Nix's teammate at Oregon, had a couple of plays where he's screaming down the sideline and they just couldn't get the ball there. So I think they're trying to take those shots, but it's just not progressing the way that they want it to. The big weapon, though, that I would be on the lookout for if I'm looking at the Bucs defense, it's going to be Josh Reynolds and it's going to be Devon Vele, the rookie out of Utah. He's coming back in his first game. I think he was targeted 4 times, 4 catches. Josh Reynolds has been our most consistent receiver so far. Lil Jordan Humphrey has been kind of quietly one of the better yak guys on this team. Courtland really hasn't been much of a factor. So it's kind of nice to, have that guy who is that traditional X receiver who's supposed to garner all this attention. But you do have these other weapons that just aren't being used correctly at this time. So hopefully they can get some concepts out that we can get those deep crossers going, or they can get that one big shot down the field. But they're going to have to protect the quarterback big time. Jaleel McLaughlin is probably the only other offensive weapon right now that I would say we really have to worry about, because he can be a threat in the run game and in the pass game. Swing screens, slip screens, anything like that. To him, he's going to be able to make a play with the ball in his hands.
Rock, when you look at the Buccaneers on offense, Baker Mayfield obviously going to be coming into this one looking to have another big day, either throwing or running the football. I think he's proven he can do a little bit of both here in the early goings of the season. But we know the Bucs are going to be without right tackle Luke Gedeke. And the Broncos, believe it or not, are above Todd Bowles so far in blitz percentage on the defensive side of the ball. You got to make pressure somehow, and they blitz 48.2% of the time. So without a right tackle, I want to assume it's going to be more of the same, but how do you think the Bucs are going to try and be prepared and do a better job of protecting Baker Mayfield this week? Because 3 sacks for Aiden Hutchinson in the first quarter of last week's game, you can't have that happen again.
Yeah, but how many Aiden Hutchinsons are there in the NFL? How
Fair.
many is there an Aiden Hutchinson on the Broncos? That's the thing. So that's what the thing this week was like. Look, Justin School got schooled. We didn't. Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator, said we did not do a good enough job in helping him out. But I think it's going to be a world of difference against that Broncos front compared to what the Lions and Hutchinson were doing. Even Todd Bowles, he was asked on Monday, what about Aiden Hutchinson? He's like, he's damn good. He is just so damn good. So the thing about it, and I asked Liam Cohen about this, it's been good. It's 2-0. Baker Mayfield he is locked in. The protection has been okay, but he has been able to elude, like you mentioned. He's really good at stepping up in the pocket. He also can scramble. So I think that has helped by him not getting sacked. But eventually, and I'm wondering if it's going to be this game, you got to start getting a consistent running game going. Just like Patrick said, if you don't have a running game, and I think I mentioned it to you. I remember Brady, when he was here, came out after one game. He's like, that was a pass-a-thon. When we do a pass-a-thon, and opposing defenses are going to tee off on us. So now Rachaad White is nursing a groin. I watched him today, not only with sprints, but also doing these exercises again. He looked pretty good to me. Bucky Irving is picking up more and more of the goal was not to have him be the bell cow. They want to have a 1-2 punch. So with Rachaad White playing, but maybe, I don't know what, 80%, 85%, groins are tricky. Maybe they'll have a hard time with the running game. But I'll tell you, Mike Evans, so unselfish, because look, Godwin has been the go-to guy lately. Evans said it depends. They were making a big thing on, the coverage. And he's like, it depends on the coverage. It's not so much the person. And so and the Broncos also blitz an awful lot. And so the defense, they've been working on that at practice this week, preparing for Sean Payton to be bringing a lot of blitzing, just like you picked up. But Godwin, Evans, Jalen McMillan, don't forget about Trey Palmer. Baker Mayfield really loves this system. He locks in. He's making the right calls. I think they're going to be able to put quite a few points on the board, and I think it's going to be through the air.
Yeah, I think that personnel and the blitz pickup, as you talked about, is going to be crucial because, listen, I know Rachaad White is a talented running back. I think he's going to do a lot of good things this season. I think he'll be out there giving it a go this weekend, but I mean, when you're nursing a groin injury, you're limited at practice all week. I wouldn't want him to take too many big-time blows from a blitzing linebacker, so got to be cautious of that. But again, Bucky Irving getting more involved in the game plan and the creativity, the new pages of this Liam Cohen offense that we seem to see week in and week out. The talk of the town this week was some of the pony concepts they have been running out. The pony offense is what they call it, where they send Bucky Irving in motion and he's sprinting to the sideline, and then you've got a bunch of other pre-snap eye candy for the linebackers, if you will. The Bucs have had a lot of success. I think you're going to have to see a lot of that this week. But one of the highlights, one of the matchups that I'm going to be watching anytime these two guys face off, couple of the best players at their respective position in the NFL. Patrick, wanted to get your thoughts on Mike Evans and Pat Surtain. It seems like Pat Surtain's going to have his hands full, whether it is Mike Evans inside or outside of the slot. If it's not Mike Evans, we have seen Chris Godwin had a little bit of a resurgence here in the first early goings of the season. Maybe he could get one up on the rookie Jalen McMillan just because he's a little green still, but it could be a tall task for him this week. How do you think the Broncos respond to the Bucs here?
Well, they've been playing a lot of cover one. They're one of the highest percentage teams in the league playing cover one, and I think that's a testament to their other two cornerbacks outside of Pat. Pat's been playing, I would say Pat's been playing pretty decent. Like he has not been playing to the level that he was playing at previously, and he's had a rough couple of games, couple flags, some ticky-tack calls, but somewhere it's just like, come on, man, you're an all-pro, you're better than that. But cornerback Riley Moss, who's making his first year starting at cornerback, and then Jaquan McMillan, who's primarily the nickel corner, they have been playing pretty solid. So Pat versus Mike Evans is definitely the battle that we're going to want to watch. Mike's a big physical receiver, probably one of the best jump ball receivers that we've seen since Calvin Johnson, if we're being honest. And Godwin's been having a fantastic year, and his relationship with Baker Mayfield is something that is one of the best in the league right now, if not the best. So Pat's going to have his hands full, but this whole secondary is going to have their hands full. They have not been executing very well as a whole, and I mean that really from the safety positions. Justin Simmons being in Atlanta is such a crime because he was the captain of this defense and he was playing so well these last few years. And so I feel like that voice is kind of missing. But with Riley Moss and Jaquan McMillan playing pretty well, pretty decent in these first two games, it makes me a little more comfortable. I worry about Chris Godwin going into this game, but as far as Pat is concerned, I think he just needs to get back to his roots, get back to his technique. He's going to have a ton of family out there in Florida at this game. So maybe this is an opportunity for him to just kind of get a fresh start against a really good opponent. You know, you got one of the best cornerbacks in the league going up against one of the best receiving cores in the league. I want to see him maybe not follow around Mike Evans so much, maybe go up against Chris Godwin in some situations. But do I trust Riley Moss against Mike Evans in those situations? Probably not.
Rock, again, looking at how the Buccaneers can move the football on the offensive side here. Baker Mayfield's been playing well, got to continue to take care of the football. But honestly, I think this could be the week that Bucs fans have been waiting for when it comes to the run game. Setting up play action, taking your shots every now and again, taking care of the football. But more so Bucky Irving kind of giving me the hunch than Rachaad White. Maybe Rachaad White getting active in the passing game as he was in week 1. But I want to hope that this week is where we can start to see some visible improvement with the Buccaneers running game, because at times they've showed us that they can do things well. Bucky Irving, still a pretty good yards per carry number to have for a rookie in the NFL. But you want to see him do it consistently, and I think you want to see things start to get better, because the Bucs, although there have been some flashes, the run game statistically is right around the level it was last year over the first 2 weeks. So your thoughts on the offensive approach here against Denver?
Yeah, it really is amazing to me, because they work so hard in this running attack with scheming, blocking, bringing in Bucky Irving all preseason. They did a nice job when the ones only played one series, if you remember, in the preseason in the game. I'm not talking about the joint practices. And man, they moved the ball. They were getting off the ball. And so when I asked that to Liam Cohen, he was very honest. I said, where do you see the run game? And he's like, well, look at how good is the Lions. I think they're 4th and 5th against the run. Washington did a good job. And then he started admitting, he goes, we haven't done a good job. And he goes, and against the Lions, that was so loud. We worked on crowd noise all week, and we did a good job with that. They didn't have any false starts. They didn't have any penalties. But that loudness, he goes, I think that hurt us. And we also missed 2 runs, especially down at the end of the game. And when you got a game like that, you can't miss that. Now, he didn't go into specifics on how they missed 2 runs, but they know it. And that's been their emphasis. And they haven't really shown it. They're going to have to show it. And Bucky Irving is interesting. He doesn't say much. He's very confident. And the one line that he used when he came out of Oregon, and the night that he was drafted, we talked to him, and at training camp, and here, he doesn't talk much to the media. He doesn't like it. And he's like, I never have the first guy tackle me. And then after the first week, when he was on the podium, he goes, yep, one guy got me. That will never happen again. So he really takes that serious. I thought, boy, going from college. The one thing that he did notice, I said, what's the biggest difference between in college and here? And he said what he noticed is defensive players are real smart, and they don't rush and come up at you right away. They're kind of sizing you up. I thought that would have been even different, like coming at you real fast. So he's noticing there's a little bit of a difference here in the NFL. But again, he doesn't lack on confidence, guys.
Yeah, you love to see it again. I think this could be the week that people have been waiting for when it comes to the run game. Patrick, I want to ask you some questions about Sean Payton, the Broncos head coach. Again, trying to turn the culture around in year 2. They were able to win 8 games last year with the Russell Wilson fiasco. End up getting out of that contract. He lands in Pittsburgh and is now riding the bench behind Justin Fields. So I want to assume they ended up being okay on the other side of it, but your opinion on Sean Payton, just as a coach, the job that he's done so far, how do you think he's doing managing a rookie quarterback, managing a roster full of NFL players, and do you believe that he can get the job done and kind of right the ship here for Denver?
Well, you know, I want to believe that Sean Payton is the right guy to turn the ship around because we've seen him do it before, and you know, we know the type of coach that he is. We know the type of environments that he comes from, his coaching tree, and kind of the stigma around that tree is like old school, hard-nosed coaching. But he's kind of got this like other swag that he can connect with his players a little bit more. Is he the guy that's going to be able to turn Denver around at this point? I don't know, because there's been a few moves that he's made that are just kind of head scratchers and don't really point to like, well, maybe we need to build up this locker room. I mentioned Justin Simmons, letting him go. That was a shock to a lot of us. And it was definitely a shock to that locker room. But the biggest one was moving on from Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick coming back from injury. They made it a priority to bring him back. And they reworked his deal. They get him out there during the preseason. They give him a ton of looks. And he's arguably the Broncos' best receiver in that room at that point. And then come cut day, you let him go. And it was like, wait, well, hang on now. Wait a minute. What's going on here? And I think it definitely took a lot of other players by surprise because he was the vocal leader in that locker room. And so now they've moved on from it. I think he's putting a lot on Bo Nix's shoulders early, which is fine. He's expecting him to be this type of quarterback that he just isn't at this point in time. Maybe he'll get there, maybe he won't. But I think what Sean needs to do is take a step back, simplify some things on the offense as far as play calling goes. We've heard a lot of it throughout the week. I don't think there's anything wrong with the calls that he's making. It's more of just situationship. And then can he get the play call out? We heard Chase Daniels in an Athletic interview say that Sean Payton struggles on the mic sometimes. He can ramble or change his mind or not get the playoff in time. And that's what I was talking about earlier with maybe we need to change at play caller. But he needs to take a step back and just look at the offense that you have as it is. What needs to be changed? Your defense is going out there and playing fine. They're the 11th ranked defense in the NFL right now, but they can't stop the run. If we can just get the offense going and put some points on the board, maybe the rest will come. But he's got to take a step back and realize you're working with a rookie quarterback. You can't be putting him in bad situations where he's going to make rookie mistakes.
How much room does Sean have to work with, not only with that rookie quarterback, but kind of with his position as head coach? Like, I want to assume that they have plenty of patience with him. He gets a chance to pick his quarterback, right? Like, that was kind of the big fuss with Russ at the end of last year, is that Russell Wilson wasn't going to be the guy in that offense for Sean Payton. It was clear they had to make a decision. He did some boss hogging around the front office, and they draft Bo Nix, which is fine. But if this season doesn't work out, and at the end of the year, you're still kind of wondering what you have with Bo Nix, because again, certain quarterbacks, after that first year, you don't know 100%. Is this a situation where Denver looks at Bo Nix and says, all right, we need to get this guy a new staff, a new head coach, someone who believes in him a little bit more? Or do you think if they only end up winning 5, 6, 7, 8 games again this year, is Sean Payton back for year 3?
Well, I think he's going to be back for year 3 regardless, but I think that's going to be like the make or break year. If he can't get it done in year 3, that's it. I think we get the most like 2 years, 3 years out of Bo Nix, if that. But I think right now there's so many holes that still need to be plugged in this roster. And it sucks because, you can't plug them all in one offseason. It doesn't happen. They made some key free agent signings these last couple of years. They're investing in the offensive line, but there's still just some areas where that Russell Wilson contract definitely hurts, especially with this offseason. But next season, you're looking at one of the top cap spaces in the league. They're going to have a ton of money. You've got the richest ownership group in the sport by far. They're making a ton of investments into the training facilities and upgrading the stadium. So this is going to be a project working up for the next year or so. But as far as Sean Payton is concerned, year 3 is going to be make or break. If they can't get Bo Nix to a spot, Bo Nix and this offense to a spot where you're middle of the road, middle of the pack by the end of this season, there might be some big changes coming along the offensive personnel. Bo's going to be there regardless, but there's going to be some big changes for sure. Tackle is going to be a spot where they're going to have to upgrade. Center, for sure, wide receiver. So next offseason is going to be an interesting one, but right now we're just kind of riding out this first year of Bo Nix.
Rock Riley joining us live from the Advent Health Training Center from work this week. Rock, you've talked a lot to Todd Bowles. You've heard him at the podium talk about how the Bucs are, they know that they're 2-0, but they still have work to do in continuing to silence a lot of the doubters. The people who are putting the Bucs as a top 10 team in the NFL right now 3 months ago said the Bucs weren't going to win 5 games this year, and he's making sure they don't forget it. Now, again, at 2-0, I think Todd Bowles has the right mindset going into this game. The Bucs just coming off of a very impressive win against Detroit, still not at the point to overlook any team in the NFL. So this could potentially be a trap game for the Bucs if they are not prepared. But I think Todd Bowles has been earning respect. I think so far this season, he has continued to have his team ready to play. And I think it'll be a testament if he can do that again week 3 against the Broncos. But your thoughts on this matchup for Todd Bowles this week? And I mean, he's facing off against Sean Payton, a head coach that he has seen plenty of times before as well during his time in New Orleans, his last couple of years here before the initial retirement. And then he comes back for Denver. Took a year off to do some TV, but he will be facing off against a Bucs team that he has seen before. Your thoughts on how Todd Bowles is going to have his team this week?
He mentioned that he's real tight. He's friends with Sean. He really respects Sean Payton. He's a great coach, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it was coach speak, but he really went in depth on that. Everyone in the locker room, there wasn't one player that is taking Denver lightly. He has drilled into them. Every year, even when you're on this ascending path like the Buccaneers are, you're going to get your clunker. It's NFL, not for long. I remember years ago in the locker room with Brad Johnson. Brad Johnson told me, you can't go by what a team did last year. You can't go by what a team in the NFL did the week before. When they had that run, when they won the Super Bowl in San Diego with all the Hall of Famers and Sapp and Lynch and Derek Brooks and Rondé, they had a terrible clunker in Oakland. It was ridiculous. Tom Brady years. They lost to the Chicago Bears, and Brady, the genius, the GOAT, didn't remember the timeouts. You have those games. There you go, Rhett. No, you have those games. So all week when I've come in, I've been like, man, this just, and look at the schedule after this, right? Look at who they have coming in. So you would think that they would look past, but it doesn't look like that. Now they're saying all the right things. Servassier Dennis, that's another one, a young linebacker. He's coming on. And I asked him, he goes, this is our biggest, no, what did he say? This is a must win. And then Bowles said, this is our biggest game of the year. Okay. So I've been covering the NFL for a long time. Just when you think it's a slam dunk, sometimes you get that clunker. And the Buccaneers say, guys, that this is not a trap game. They're not looking past that.
On paper, shouldn't be a close game. But just like you said, it is the NFL. You never know. Let's go ahead and dive into our picks here and wrap up today's game preview edition of the show. Listen, I don't think it is particularly close. And I hate to say that because I sound like Detroit fans sounded last week, and I don't want to give that impression. We've talked to Lions fans for 2 years in a row on the podcast who think that their stuff doesn't smell, so they always come in and pick the Lions to win by 20 points, and they have up until last week. So I don't want to give that impression, but I think if the Bucs play the way that they are hoping to play, they are the better team. And if they can play consistent football, this is an important time of the season to stack up wins because, Rock, as you mentioned, look at the schedule after this. Look at that 5-game stretch leading up to the bye week for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it's going to be tough. You have got, I think, you play both of the Super Bowl teams in 3 weeks of each other. You got a couple of other primetime games. Going to be playing Baltimore during that stretch, who I know started 0-2, but they're going to start winning some games, trust me. With that being said, I think if everything goes according to plan, knock on wood, because you know how that goes, I think the Bucs win this game 26-13. I think it'll be a couple of field goals for Denver, and they do find the end zone at least one time, maybe towards the end of the game when the Bucs coverage gets a little bit lazy. But I think the Bucs should handle this game. Maybe they have some room to try some new things on the offensive side of the ball, and that's where they can chew some clock with Bucky Irving and kind of hope that this run game picks up and carries on. But I will go to Patrick, and we will get your pick and final score prediction here, my friend.
Yeah, this is going to be a really rough game for the Denver Broncos, especially if the offense stays kind of where it's been these first 2 weeks. Slow getting out the gate, slow coming in from the second half, just not the offense that you want to see. And this is a very good team running the football. Denver is not a good team defending the run. So you mentioned it. I think this is the week that Tampa Bay gets that run game really going. And Denver has had a really tough time stopping the run. They're generating a little bit of pressure, but not much. Absolutely love Baker Mayfield in this Tampa Bay offense. I love the weapons that he has. I'm very envious, I'll say. But I think that this is a big win for Tampa Bay. I think they get their third win of the season. I'm going to say 24-10. Buccaneers take the win at home.
Rock, who you got?
Both you guys saying the run game by the Bucs is going to be good. So over in the facility, hey, Todd, these guys say you're probably going to be able to run the football this week. All right. I picked against the Buccaneers last week, and with this new venture, the 813.tv, I think there was me and this James Yarko, and everybody else picked the Bucs, and they were giving us so much crap. And I'm watching the game, and I was waiting for and they ended up winning. So no, I on a 31-13. I really see, honestly, the offense is clicking. Baker's feeling good. And Evans is like, Father Time hasn't hit him. Godwin is doing great. Jalen McMillan, and since you guys think the running game is going to be good, that makes me feel a little bit better on my prediction. So we'll see. 31-13, Buccaneers go to 3-0.
Our buddy Christopher Cole in the chat says Bucs by 10. Richard T on the West Coast says, I feel the running back's going to be a huge part in the run and pass game this week. Bucs 34, Broncos 13, and Mikey Kelly bringing it home. The homer pick, 48-3 Bucs, is what our buddy MK has to say. That should be an exciting game. That's a hell of a lot of points. I think that would be the over as well. I think the over/under for this week is right around 40 points. So
yes,
it could be a nice over. I believe betting the Bucs this week, Evan actually picked the over on the over/under. So go pick that up if you can. Bet responsibly. And let's go ahead and wrap this show up. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this week's game preview edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I want to say thank you to both of my guests here today. Patrick from Bleav in Broncos. Where can the people find you and your content getting rolling here for the 2024 season?
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it. At Patrick Chiotti is my profile tag. And then, subscribe to Bleav in Broncos on the Bleav Network. Going to have a lot of good content coming out this season, so can't wait.
Appreciate your time, man. Pleasure talking.
Thank you.
Talking some ball with you. Appreciate your insight. Rock Riley, ladies and gentlemen. Rock, you have got a new venture that you're diving into. Where can the people find you each and every week?
Yes, we are at the 813.tv. The 813.tv, still Tampa Free Press. And, of course, my podcast, The Rock Stops Here.
I linked that new channel, the 813 TV, in the description of the YouTube video that you may be watching. So if you folks want to watch Rock Riley and James Yarko every single week on the network, as well as some other top quality content, make sure you go check it out. Fellas, I appreciate both of your time. Last but not least, you can find myself Instagram and Twitter at Redicus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. We will be live Sunday after the game. I don't know if it's going to be right after the game, like it normally is. We kind of have to wait and see what's going to be going on. Maybe I go to the game, maybe I don't. I don't know. Tough decisions to be made between now and Sunday at 1 p.m., but it should be a great game. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off from my guest today, Patrick Chiotti and Rock Riley. Thank you guys once again. Thank you to everybody watching us live and hanging out with us. We'll see you soon. Until then, and as always, go Bucs. All right, stand by.